Hello! In this Unity tutorial, we're going to take a look at the different types of object transforms. I've gone ahead and created a blank 2D project. If you're not sure how to do this, please take a look at the project setup video on this channel. So to get started, we need to bring something in so that we can manipulate it using the transform tools. I've gone ahead and downloaded a .png image. A .png image is a portable network graphic image, which is an image that allows for transparency. I've downloaded it and set it on my desktop. You can choose any image of your choosing. Let me go ahead and grab it here. You'll want to click, hold, and drag it from wherever it's located into the project window at the bottom. So go ahead and click, hold, drag, and drop, just like that. If you select on it by left-clicking it, you'll notice the properties of this image in the inspector on the right-hand side of your screen. Just a few notable things to point out here. This texture type is of sprite, so this is relevant to our 2D development environment that we're currently in. We can use this as a static image, drag and drop it into the scene, or we can use it on the UI or user interface. Alright, there are a bunch of different other properties here that we're going to be covering in a more specific Unity image tutorial, so please take a look for that on our channel. But continuing on here, we're going to go ahead and drag in this image into the scene so that we can have something to manipulate. So let's go ahead, hold down your left mouse button, and drag the image from the project window into the Unity scene. If you're not sure what the Unity scene is, we talked about it in the project setup video. Now the Unity scene is going to be the place where you're going to add all of your assets in. So for example, we just brought this image and dragged it into the scene. This is where we're going to be able to manipulate it, add other things such as other images with animations, sounds, buttons for linear navigation, and much more in the future. For the time being though, we're going to walk through each of the transform tools, and those are located in the upper left hand corner of Unity. So follow my mouse, and we're going to go up here to the very left hand corner. Let me go ahead and maximize this just so it takes the screen space. And the very first tool here, before we click on it, if you hover over it, most tools inside of Unity, as long as you hover over it for a few seconds, will give you a very short description, or at least the name of that tool and what it does. In this case, the first one is the hand tool. I personally don't use the hand tool very often, but it is a powerful tool that when selected is going to allow you to left click down on your Unity scene and more or less drag your viewport around. You can either right-click or left-click with your mouse to be able to use this tool, but that is about the extent of the tool. You can zoom in and out using the scroll wheel. Another very helpful hint is if you are, for example, far away from an object, you can select on it in the hierarchy, which is a list of all the game objects in your scene, and then press F on the keyboard. F is to focus, so it'll focus back in on that object. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch to the next transform tool. The next one here is the move tool. So when we select the move tool, there are going to be these two different axes that pop up. We have a green one representing the y-axis and the red one representing the x-axis. You can click down with the left mouse button and drag the object up and down, left and right, using these handles. There is a third one there. You can just barely see it, but there is some blue. Let's go ahead and temporarily switch to the 3D environment by selecting this 2D box here that is currently lit. Notice that when we hover over it, it's going to give you a brief description saying that we are currently in 2D view. We're going to go ahead and toggle it into 3D. And when we do that, you'll notice that the perspective of the scene is going to change. And all of a sudden, we have these Cartesian three separate axes here for our Y, our X, and our Z as well. you'll notice that those are going to correspond to this tool in the upper right hand corner of your scene view. And I think now would be a good time to talk about this one. This is going to be a little bit more relevant for your 3D modeling and navigation inside of Unity, but I've used it quite a bit within 2D as well, especially when working with layers inside of Unity. So when we have objects stacked on top of each other, sometimes it's hard to see what object is in front of another. It is very helpful to be able to toggle between the 2D and the 3D mode, and then use these Cartesian handles here to be able to toggle between different views. And let me just show you what they do really quick. If you go ahead and select on any of them, you'll notice that your Unity view is going to be automatically repositioned. So for example, you'll see the X and the Y. Those are all changing as I'm clicking on this, and these are going to give you that perspective view, looking from the back, now the front, a top-down view, and then a bottom view. You can see that it's rotating 90 degrees around this object. Now, when you're navigating inside of the 3D port, it's very helpful to know how to do it. So with your mouse, if you hold down on the scroll wheel or your third mouse button is going to allow you to more or less quickly activate the hand tool. You can see that when I'm holding down my middle mouse button or scroll wheel, the hand tool is automatically getting activated. I can also hold down the right mouse button and I can turn my camera, or my perspective I should say, around to be able to view this object at a different plane or angle. Okay, for what we're doing though, let's go ahead and switch back into the 2D perspective. So we'll select this 2D box again, and then with the object selected in the hierarchy, let's go ahead and press F on the keyboard just to get it recentered. So the reason why I wanted to show you that is because it's going to make explaining these tools a lot better and hopefully a little bit more comprehensive. We previously worked with the Move tool, and now we have the Rotate tool and the Scale tool. So as their name implies, the Rotate tool is going to allow you to grab on a specific axis and rotate this around. It's a little bit easier to see in the 3D environment, which is why I wanted to show you that. But you can see how this 2D sprite we can manipulate in a 3D space just like that. Similarly, let's go ahead and select the next one here, which is the Scale tool. As its name implies, you can go ahead and pick a particular axis, such as this X-axis to scale across, and then the Y-axis to make it a lot bigger. We can press Control Z. Control Z is going to do an undo. And if we wanted to scale it, for example, uniformly on all three axes, you'll notice that there is a smaller white box in the center of this object. If you click on it, hold down your left mouse button, you can drag it, and it's going to uniformly scale this sprite. I'm zooming out by scrolling with the mouse. You can see that we can make it big, we can make it small. I'm left clicking on this box and just dragging in and out with my mouse. Alright, so that's a pretty comprehensive overview of these three tools here. Let's go ahead and talk about the next one, which is the rectangle tool. So the rectangle tool, it'll be a little bit more helpful if I'm in the 2D environment, so I'm going to go ahead and toggle this back to 2D. And something that's also very helpful is we have this object currently selected in the hierarchy, which means that we're going to be able to see the properties of it in the inspector. Now, as we were doing all of these transforms, whether it be toggling the position, rotating it, or scaling it, you'll notice that these values are now different. And if I were to scale this, for example, you can see how its position and how its scale is somewhat changing on the inspector. Sometimes when we're just playing with it, we want to go ahead and reset it. You can manually type in 0 for all these things, or you can right-click on the name of this component. So again, put your mouse cursor on the name of the component, select Reset. That will zero everything out and reset the scale to 111. You wouldn't want the scale to be 0. If the scale was 0, for example, on X and Y, well, we wouldn't be able to see that because it is a 2D image. Okay, let's go ahead and put those back to 1. Press Tab and put that back to 1. We'll press F with our mouse in the scene view. Excuse me, I need to not be scaling that. Click in there and then press F to zoom in with it selected. There we go. Perfect. Alright, so the rectangle tool now. So the rectangle tool is really nice if you need to reposition something to fill a very specific area. So for example, what we have here is we have the main camera and then we have our image. The main camera is this white bounds here, and then you can see obviously the bounds of the Central Michigan Flying C. The rectangle tool is just a nice way to be able to quickly drag the edges of this. So if I were to drag it just like that, we can position that just like that. And we'll go ahead and just make that about that size. Snap it into position. Perfect. So that's a bit big, but the rectangle tool is just a little bit easier, in my opinion, to scale rather than just grabbing one of these or typing in the values directly. It's a lot nicer just to be able to grab on one of the edges here and be able to pull it out just like that. Alright, so we have 2 more tools to talk about. This next one here is Move, Rotate, or Scale, all bundled into one. So if we go ahead and select on that, you'll notice that, well, we have all 3 tools combined. This is actually a newer feature inside of Unity, and it's really nice to just be able to have all of them there at once. It can kind of clutter up what you're looking at, especially if your scene is already very cluttered with a lot of game objects in it. But as you might guess, we can do all of the different operations. We can grab the movement, we can grab the scale, and we can also grab the rotate just like that. So another really nice transform tool there available to us. And then finally, we have the custom editor tools. So with Unity, you can define your own custom editors, which is going to require some scripting knowledge, so we're not going to cover it in this video. We'll likely have a later video on custom editors, so please do check that out on our channel when that gets released. But let me at least talk to you about what type of things can go here. I'm going to actually go ahead and delete the Flying C out of our scene, and I'm going to go ahead and go to Game Object, 3D Object, Cube. And with the cube, what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select this tool, and there is one there for us already, well, 2, but we're going to pick the Edit Box Collider one. So this is just a quick way to get to the Box Collider editing. Now we haven't talked about Box Collider yet, or if you haven't seen our video on collisions, please take a look at that. The Box Collider allows things to collide with each other. If we take a look and zoom in here, you'll notice that it's outlined with a green outline. We also have smaller green rectangles around this object. When we had this selected and we chose the edit the bounding box here, that's going to allow us to drag this out. Now notice there is a distinction here. This, the actual cube is not changing itself. The collider around the cube is changing. So what this essentially means is, let's say we had a rock inside of a video game. Some developers like to just put a box collider around the rock. It makes it easier for performance. You don't have to have a complex collider, and more or less it's just a small square that the player will interact with. The reason why we do something like that is colliders can become expensive in Unity. As you're learning Unity, performance shouldn't really be at the front of your mind. It's definitely something you want to consider later on, especially when we get to upper level classes, CPS 382, ITC 383 courses. Performance is should be at the forefront of our minds. We have 2 different types of colliders. We have box colliders and mesh colliders. Mesh colliders conform exactly to the object shape. Box colliders, as their name implies, just puts a box around the shape. Mesh colliders are significantly more detailed but allow the user to interact with the object as if the actual shape was the collision. So, like for example, the human hand, it would have colliders around the fingers and such, but if it's a box collider, it would just be one giant box around the hand. I hope that excites you for the things that you can do inside of Unity. Unity is so powerful in that respect. But that is all I wanted to talk about with the custom editor. I hope I didn't overwhelm you. I hope I got you excited about all the things that Unity can do. Again, if that didn't make any sense about the collisions, please don't worry about that. Check out our collisions video. All I want you to take away from this last tool here is that you can define custom editors. In this case, when we brought in the cube, one of them that came with it was the ability to edit the box collider on it. But you don't need to worry about that for a little bit just yet. Alright, so if you have any questions or anything like that, please do leave them in the comment section or reach out to your instructor and we'd be more than happy to help you. Thank you very much.